It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video. This week I'm showing a little something different. This is something that I just wanted to make for myself, and I used a Raspberry Pi Zero W. I know a lot of you guys like Raspberry Pi projects and have Raspberry Pis that you like to use. So this is the Raspberry Pi Zero with the wireless card in it built in. Now you can use a regular Raspberry Pi, but you'd have to get a wireless dongle to do this if you wanted to. But my mailbox, and I'll show a picture of kind of the setup of my house and where things are at. My mailbox is about 40 feet from my front door. So for those of you that are not using feet or don't know what that is, that's basically 3 feet to a meter, essentially. We'll just go loosely with that. So, 40 divided 3, you're talking about 13 meters, 14 meters, somewhere in that range. So from my front door to my mailbox is 14 meters. Not too odd, probably. But a lot of times I don't realize that the mailman has been by, the postal worker has been by to drop off mail. My mailbox is also a giant post, so it's not like I can just tell if there's something there or not. There's no flag on it or anything like that that would tell me that he's been by. So I have to go check, and go check several times a day sometimes, because they do come at different times depending on how their route works and things like that. So I was thinking, okay, how's a way that I could know that the postal worker's been by? Because I have a Ring doorbell, but it goes off all day long for cars if I set it sensitive enough to see the street. I have a couple of other cameras that are the same way. If I set the sensitivity enough, it sees all the cars, and then I'm sitting there just checking all day long to see was that the postman. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. I wanted to open up some channels for discussion, so I've created this Rocket Chat server, and I've got it mixed up with Jitsi Meet. I've created a few channels already to start up some discussions, but of course we can always open up more channels. If you'd like to jump in and send me a direct message or just ask a question on one of the channels, I'll be monitoring the system. It'll be up and running. I'm going to leave this up and going so that we can have a place where we can all come together and answer each other's questions and have good discussions and good conversations. It's discuss.opensourceisawesome.com. Again, that's discuss.opensourceisawesome.com. I'll have the links in the show notes and the description. So I thought, okay, let me set up something that should be pretty simple. So I had to think about it a little bit, but I've got this setup that you're kind of going to see on the screen. I'm recording it with my phone, and basically I've got it here on the table. So I've got, and I'll try not to turn away from the microphone too much, but I've got this battery pack. Now I'm going to replace this battery pack with a normal, like, multi, AA battery pack. So probably 3 AA batteries or something like that. And once I do that, then that's really easy to mount inside of my mailbox on the sidewall. And then I've got this right now. It's just an extension cable for the USB that comes out of this battery pack, and then that goes over to. And I'm going to turn the mic. Give me just a second. So once I've got this stuff set up, I've got this USB cable that comes around. And you can see here that it's plugged in, and it's got this little magnetic switch. So this is the magnet, and this is the switch. Now this is a switch that you can do either normally open or normally closed, so you can choose how you want that to happen. And what that means is normally open means that normally there's no power when the switch is open like this. Normally closed would mean that there's no power when the switch is closed, which means I pull the magnet over here and it closes the switch. So it's just got a little switch that toggles one way or the other. It's just like a regular switch on the light system. So basically I can turn it off or I can turn it on. So if you have in your house a light that runs off of 2 different switches, you can flip one way and it turns the light on, and then you can walk over to the other one and flip it down and it turns the light off. And if you keep doing that, you can switch which way those light switches go in order to turn the light on or off. It's kind of confusing and a pain, but that's kind of what this does. It gives you options. So I've got this wired up so that on the side, and this is kind of a loose, yucky wiring job that I would fix with some solder and an enclosure. But you can kind of see here how I've got it wired in there. So it's got a common that everything goes to, and then you've got this switch, and then you've got power that when that switch closes, it starts running the circuit to the Raspberry Pi Zero. And on here I've just got like a Raspbian Buster Lite with no desktop environment or anything. So I just log into it through SSH and I put a script on it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then when I close this switch, this turns on, it runs a script, and it sends me a message on Telegram that says that the mailbox was opened, and then it shuts itself down after 30 seconds. So I'm just going to quickly show you what that does. So I'm going to move this switch. So I'm going to close this, and you'll see on the screen, I'll bring up the Telegram window here. So as this is going, you'll see that it starts to boot up, and you can see the little LED light there in the corner as it starts to boot up and kind of do its thing. So it's running through its boot process, and once it gets booted, it's actually going to go and just run this little send process to send to a Telegram bot a message that then sends it to me to say, hey, this thing just occurred, this event just occurred. So I've got an event that's basically being triggered, and once I get that, then it's going to wait about 30 seconds, and then it's going to shut down. So there's a few pieces to this, and I'll go through how all of this works and how I made this work. But I want you to just see kind of what it does first. So there's the message. It just showed up on the screen, and that probably took maybe 30 seconds. I don't know. It didn't take very long. So, and I'll explain why I have this set up the way that I do as well, because it's important to understand that. So as you keep watching, again, it'll wait about another 30 seconds after it sends that message, and then it's going to shut down the Raspberry Pi Zero, and we'll talk about why I have things set up the way I do. So now you see the little light starts to blink. This is the shutdown process for the Raspberry Pi Zero W, and when the LED turns off, then it's completely off, just like that. Now I've set this up so that when I close the switch, it sends the message. And the reason I did that is I had to think about this. So normally the mailbox lid is closed, like you'd see here. It's closed just right now, which means I don't want this to be running when it's closed all the time. So that's kind of weird that I say, okay, power it on when it closes, but I had to think about it from this perspective. The mailman shows up, he opens the box. Let's just say that I said, okay, I want this to be normally, set up for normally closed so that when he opens it, it powers up. That's great, except when it's normally closed, there's no power. So he opens it up, he throws the mail in there, he closes it. It takes all of 3 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. Doesn't matter. Even if it took 40 seconds, it probably wouldn't be enough time. It doesn't. It takes him 5 seconds tops. So he opens it up, puts the mail in, closes the lid. So he opens it up. If I had it set to do it on open, then the Raspberry Pi would start booting. He would take the 5 seconds, and then he would close it, and it would shut down the Raspberry Pi, because as soon as that switch goes back on, it turns off. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to pull this away for just a second. Wait a second, and then I'm going to push it back, and you'll see that the Raspberry Pi turns on. So let's just pretend that I pulled it away. I opened the door. The Raspberry Pi is booting. I put in the mail, maybe put in another piece of mail, maybe shove in a package here for a second. Push it in, right? And then I close the door because I'm done. Boom. I just shut down the Raspberry Pi, and it never got a chance to send my message. So this would be the same thing, except if I had it set the other way, it wouldn't work. So my thought was, okay, I've got to let him open the door. Nothing's going to happen. Then when he closes the door, it's going to boot up. It's going to do its thing. It's going to send me the message. And then I thought, okay, but I don't want it to stay on all the time. So I just set a simple thing that says wait 30 seconds after you send the message, and then shut down. So give yourself time to make sure the message got sent, which 30 seconds ought to be more than enough time if it's got connectivity. And I've got a couple of things in the script that I'm going to show you that will check for connectivity as well. And then once you've had that time, shut yourself down. Basically assume you got the message out to me and shut yourself down. It may not always work, but so far I haven't had it miss being here in the house. Now again, 40 feet out to the curb inside of a mailbox that's enclosed in a box, it may not get the best wireless signal, and the Raspberry Pi Zero W doesn't have the best wireless card on earth either, so I may have to get a dongle to make it work at some point, but I'm going to try it and see how it goes. But I wanted to show you kind of the build. So this is really all it is. It's just 4 pieces. The switch, the Raspberry Pi Zero W, a battery pack, and a little bit of cable. It's really not super hard to set this up. And then I think I can actually, once I get the battery pack, I can put this all in kind of a nice little box, and then just add this magnet to the door, and this magnet inside, of course, connected to the Raspberry Pi, and then everything will do what it's supposed to do. And I've already gotten the second message, and it'll start shutting itself back down right about now. There it goes. So there you go. There's the build that we're really looking at. So I'm going to switch back over to the computer, and we're going to talk about actually how the code works together to make this happen. And it's super simple. I'll put it out on GitHub, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can grab it if you'd like to try to set this up. But it's so simple, it's not funny. So let's go through that. Alright, I keep turning my mic around, so hopefully I'm not affecting the audio quality too much. I'm sorry if I'm killing you guys with audio changes. I'll do my best to level it when I do my editing. Still not the greatest at audio editing, but here we go. Here's the two messages that I've sent since we've been just working on this, and I see that the mailbox was opened, and that's it. You know, it's nothing major. It just tells me that it happened, and I can go out and actually check the mail. Now, this could be some kid walking by that opened it and closed it too, but most of the time it's going to be the postal worker. So when we start talking about how I set this up, so I'm going to kind of start from the bottom and work my way up. First, I wrote this script, so it's a very simple script. So first we're going to run it in Bash, and then we've kind of got this setup here that says first check if the wireless is connected. So I wanted to make sure that before I tried to send this thing that I actually had the wireless connected. So this little thing says, you know, do this until I see that it's connected. So basically while the IW get ID, so this is basically says, you know, go get my interface for my wireless card identification. So it says while this thing is equal to nothing, while it's empty, do this, and it says echo no Wi-Fi. So if I was watching this in the terminal while it's running, which I was when I was first making the script, I would see it just putting out no Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi, until eventually the Wi-Fi got connected. So when the Wi-Fi connects, it has an ID, and it's no longer equal to this empty string. So it says, hey, I see this, but this is wrong. So it says I'm going to jump out of this loop, which is what I want. So this thing just runs in a loop until it finally sees that this is not empty, which means it's got a Wi-Fi connection. It jumps out, and it comes down here, and it uses Intify. So I just installed Intify on this Raspberry Pi Zero W, and I've talked about that in another video, which I will link for you guys. But Intify, and then basically I just tell it, I set up a bot with Telegram, so I say Intify-B, Telegram send, and then this is the message that I'm sending. So you can change this message to whatever you want. You know, this could be anything that you're triggering using this mechanism. It doesn't have to be the mailbox. It could be anything. It could be your front door. It could be your garage door. It could be your back door. It could be a window. I mean, you could set this up on anything. Now, it's kind of expensive, right? They have window sensors that you could set up with Home Assistant and do this just as easily, probably. I'm just not sure the range on Windows sensors being as far as this goes, and I wanted something fun to do with a Raspberry Pi Zero W. You know, $10, you know, a battery pack, and go after it. So it says, you know, I send this thing. I'm going to wait 30 seconds, and then this is the shutdown command, and that's it. It's really nothing special. It just says shut myself down. So this thing will run. Once it's up and running, basically. And this is just kind of a safety check because I've got this script and I've got it saved in the Raspberry Pi. Now, how I do this is I set it up as a systemd service so that when the system boots, it goes through and kind of says, here's what I want to do. So there's two steps. Create the script. Great. Next, we're going to create a file called sendmailboxact.service. Now you can, again, name this whatever you want. You just need to know what it's named. That's all. So I set this up, and basically I did this to stop it earlier, because once you set this up, you've got about 30 seconds from the time that you get that message to log into the Raspberry Pi and give it this command if you need to leave the Raspberry Pi on so that it doesn't shut itself down. Yeah, so you got to stop this service basically before all that stuff happens, and then you can work inside of it, because otherwise it's going to shut itself down after 30 seconds every time you start it. Anyways, so we've got this service that we're going to say, so we call unit, and we tell it, here's the description, send message for mailbox activity. This could be whatever you're using this for. And it says wants network.target. So I'm saying I want this thing to have network activity or network capability after the network.target, which means after the network is up. Now, that's the reason I have this kind of safety feature loop here, is that just because this thing thinks the network is up, that just means the interface is up. It doesn't mean it's connected yet to my Wi-Fi. It just means that it brought up the interface. So I don't want it to just trigger as soon as this interface comes up, because it may not be connected to my Wi-Fi yet, and then it's trying to send a message that doesn't happen. So next we've got type is one shot, so basically that's it. Do it and die, right? The next one is what I want it to do. So, bin sh-c until ping. So basically I'm going to say, you know what? Let's just ping Google and make sure that I get something. So until I get a ping response from Google, I'm just going to say, I don't have anything. So it's going to say until ping-c1google.com. So if it gets nothing, it's going to say sleep for 1 second and do it again. And then it's going to check, and if it gets nothing, sleep for 1 second, do it again. So every second it's going to go out and ping Google and try to see if it gets something. Once it gets something, it's going to say, okay, cool, I'm done. And then it's going to go to this line which says run this script. So you have to make this script executable, but it's going to say exec start home pi, which is just the home directory in the Raspberry Pi. And then this is the script name that we created down here. And then it says run this as the user pi, which is who we're logged in as when we made the script. And then finally this says wanted by multi-user.target. This just means like anybody could actually run this. It's not specifically just Pi, but in this case we're saying user Pi, so it's fine. So this is just the little systemd description that we create, the service description for systemd. Once we do that, then we go in and we say, okay, now I need to set this up. So we're just going to go to our terminal here, our handy dandy terminal, and I'm going to kind of show you guys how to do this. Now, this isn't going to work as well on my system because it's not a Raspberry Pi, first of all. But we're going to basically create, so we're going to just make a directory here on my home system. I'll cd into it, and I'll do clear. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger font for you guys. Ooh, that may be too big, my gosh, even for me. So let's do, there we go. This should be good. And we're going to do nano, and that's, what did we call that script? mail_activity.sh. So we're just going to grab this text, and again, I'll have this in the show notes, and I will have it where you guys can go and grab it whenever you want to. And I'm going to switch this view just so I can grab it out of my actual notes here instead. So we're going to grab this bin bash 30 seconds shutdown now, and we actually want this line if we can get it. Copy, and then we'll go back to the terminal and we'll paste that in, and we do have that extra line. Good. So this is it. We don't really have to do anything special. It's just saying go check this thing. So we're going to just do Control O to save and hit enter, and then Control X to exit. So now we have this mailbox activity. So if I do /mailactivity.sh, it's going to say the Intify command not found because I don't have Intify installed on this machine. So you need to install Intify as well. So again, go through that video. But we've got our activity created, which is what we want. Okay. Now, once we create that script, we need to know where it's at. That's all. We're going to create another file called service, and we're going to call this, you can call it again whatever you want, but I called it this right here, sendmailboxact.service, or actually this one is better. We'll copy it, and then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say nano, and we'll just go grab that text. So, and I'll have this all broken down in the show notes so that you can actually go get Intify and install it and everything like that. And then we're going to do paste. So everything here should be good. There's nothing particularly special about what I'm running here, but it's going to try to run this thing. Now it's not in home Pi in this case. It's in my own home folder on this machine, so Brian/Pi. And it's going to give the same error if we try to run it, but we'll go and do Control Enter and save it, and then Control X. Now we have to move this service, so we're going to say sudo move send mail activity service to /etc/systemd/system, like this. Okay, now we're going to say sudo system ctl start send mail box act. Let's see if it can find that. Nope, service failed. Oh, I know one thing we need to fix just because on this machine. So I got to change this on this machine because there's no user named Pi. Oh, I moved it. So sudo nano etc system d system send. Yes. This, in this case, has to be me. But you wouldn't normally need to do that. You would have it as Pi if you didn't rename your user in there or set up a different user on your Raspberry Pi. Let's try that again. Oh yeah, so this is just failing because, again, it's got that line in there for Intify, and it doesn't know what to do with that. So it's actually doing what we want. So we can look here and see. So it's just pinging Google, saying, oh, hey, I got a response, great, and it's moving to the next part, which is, hey, go run this script. And, of course, it can't because I don't have Intify installed on this machine. So this is all doing exactly what we expected, but it's going to fail on my machine because I don't have Intify installed here. I apologize for not getting that set up, but I hope that you see what this does, and I will have instructions again on how to install Intify. I'll have instructions on how to set up the Raspberry Pi for you so that you can get the ISO installed on an SD card, and then I'll have the script information, and I'll have the service information and everything about where you need to put it and what permissions you need to give it so that it can work. And I'll even have some real simple instructions on how to wire up a switch like this and where you can get that switch. I think I got it on Amazon pretty cheap, so it's pretty easy. And then you just need a power source to make that thing run. But I hope you enjoyed this. It's really just a hobby, a fun little thing that we can do. But you can change this, like I said, to do all kinds of things to detect when something is opened or closed, basically. It could be a gate in your yard. It could be, again, doors on your house, or it could be doors on your shed outside. I've got a tool shed that it might be good to kind of monitor when the door is open. Now, again, I've got a security system at my home. It might be easier just to put a magnetic thing on that tool shed so I know when it's opened or closed. But, all kinds of ideas. So if you don't have a security system and you're just looking for a way to kind of monitor what's happening at your home when you're not there, or if you're looking for a way to monitor what's happening at your home when you are there, if you want to know when the postal service has come by and dropped off mail, this is a real easy and not super expensive way to do that. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.